Expose Evil here. Like, share, subscribe. Today I'm doing a video to further explain the definition of Baphomet being derived from Muhammad in the Websters. And I'm going to show you that Muhammad, aka Baphomet, is no different than Bacchus, Osiris, Dionysus, Mithras, Tammuz, like I've shown you in other videos. So it's so obvious if you look at the main object of worship at the Mecca. It is actually the black cube of Saturn. They even have it clothed in black. And they call it the Kaaba, which translates to cube. This is also called the Star of Saturn, X 743. Webster's Deluxe Unabridged Dictionary, 2nd edition. Page 147. Baphomet, derived from Mohammed or Muhammad, an idol or spiritual symbol. Continue on 148. Which the medieval Knights Templars were accused of worshipping in their secret ceremonies. Now this is one of the most obvious pieces of evidence of Baphomet worship. It is called the Kaaba, which translates to cube, and they clothe it in some black cloth. Now this cube is actually worshipped worldwide and very important occult symbol for the mystery religions of Babylon. It is actually the North Pole of Saturn. It has this hexagram shape all the time on it, which they call the cube of Saturn. These are NASA or supposed NASA images of the North Pole of Saturn. Using geometry, you get the hexagram on the North Pole, and you can turn it into a cube. And also can be turned into a 6-point star. This is actually a representation, the hexagram, the cube, the star, of the Kabbalah, or spirit travel, astral projection, transcendental meditation, whatever you want to call it. Okay, this is the double X. From 5 to 2, from 7 to 8 is one X. From 8 to 3 to 2 to 6 is the other X. Or IXXI. 5 to 7 being the I, 6 to 3 being the other I. Within the cube, Saturn worship, cube worship, 8 points of time and space. Spirit world. Every Kabbalistic religion is about astral projecting. As you see here in the Kabbalah, we get the XX again. Or the 8 points of time and space. Here we go again, the cube in the Kabbalah. Or the Kabbalah Tree of Life, this is called. These symbols are symbols from Babylon representing spirit travel. This is the way they work for Satan. His dark kingdom is in heavenly places. As Ephesians 6:12, for we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in heavenly places, in the spirit world, where we cannot see. Again, you see the 2 X's. Or the 8 points of time and space, or the seal of Saturn. We see this cube all around America and all around the world. We'll see here in Santa Ana, Manhattan, Australia, Denmark, at the Masonic Lodge. Notice the black and white esoteric floors, meaning good and evil. Look at the 2 Saturn cubes. Same as above, so below. It's the same thing. All Kabbalistic religions go by the same thing. Even these Khazar Jews who go by the Talmud and the Zohar. Cube worship, Saturn worship. Alright, so speaking of the Baphomet, we got to go back to the Knights Templars who were accused of worshiping the Baphomet. And here I'm going to give you proof that they were. Now this is Arcana of Freemasonry by Albert Chorchward. We're going to be going to page 13. And it says right here, Chevalier Ramsay stated that modern masonry had its beginning in the Society of Architects, founded in Scotland under the protection of King Robert Bruce, and the title of Ancient and Accepted Masons of the Scottish Rite may possibly have been formed in Scotland there and then. But if that is so, we must trace the origin of this to the order of Knights Templar, who fled to Scotland, and through them to the ancient mysteries practiced in the East. Now notice he said the ancient mysteries practiced in the East. The ancient mysteries is the worship of Baphomet, but not in the form that we know it, because the image of the Baphomet that we know now was only drawn in the 1900 by another Mason named Eliphas Levi. Now this is Secret Societies and Subversive Movements by historian Nesta H. Webster. I forgot what page this one was on, but when you get the PDF, you can go to the search bar at the top and type in whatever words you're looking for, and it'll come up wherever those words are in the PDF. So if you're looking for Baphomet, you type in Baphomet, and it'll show you where they typed in Baphomet all throughout the PDF. Now this is from Secret Societies by Nesta Webster. Eliphas Levi even goes so far as to accuse the Templars of following the occult practices of the Luciferians, who carried the doctrines of Bogomils to the point of paying homage to the powers of darkness. Let us declare, for the edification of Volker and for the greater glory of the Church, which has persecuted the Templars, burned the magicians, and excommunicated the Freemasons electric, let us say boldly and loudly that all the initiates of the occult science have adored, do and will always adore, that which is signified by this frightful symbol, the symbiotic goat. Yes, in our profound conviction, the Grand Masters of the Order of the Templars adored Baphomet and caused him to be adored by their initiates. It will be seen then that the accusation of heresy brought against the Templars does not emanate solely from the Catholic Church, but also from the secret societies. Even our Freemasons, who, for reasons I shall show later, have generally defended the order, are now willing to admit that there was a very real case against them. And don't forget, Eliphas Levi drew the Baphomet, the image that we know of, from the 1900s. And he was also a co-mason. And then Nesta also says, in another part of the book, Baphomets were preserved in the Masonic lodges of Hungary, where a debased form of masonry known as Johannite masonry survives to this day. Just like we see at the Masonic lodge, with the black and white esoteric floors, the secret meaning of good and evil, we see the same representation in the Baphomet image drawn by Eliphas Levi. We get the white moon and the black moon. As above, so below. Mason once told me that this means to find the balance, that there's a duality in everything. And we see it even in here with him having the penis with the breasts. He's a hermaphrodite, an androgynous being. believed to be from the Nephilim seed. Now this can be found all over the world. Another example is the yin yang, the esoteric meaning of good and evil. Again, we also see a representation of astral projection here in this image. The pole with the snakes intertwining represents the spirit fire of your soul traveling through the chakras, being one, the penis chakra, the navel chakra, your heart chakra, throat chakra. See, the 5-point star will be the pineal gland chakra. The top represents the spirit fire escaping into the spirit world, exactly like in Hindu mysticism, Kundalini yoga. Now, the Knights Templars didn't know this form of the Baphomet because, like I said before, this was drawn in the 1900s by Eliphas Levi. Maybe they known this form in the spirit world, if this is the way the demon came to them or presented itself to them. But they didn't know this form. And before this form, Eliphas drew, there was another without the body, which looked like this. And you know, most pictures that you see like this with the Baphomet head inside the 5-point star, which I read that the upside down 5-point star represents the fall of Lucifer. Sometimes you see it with the words Samuel and Lilith written in the empty spaces. Now this one, the 5-point star Baphomet, says the original gold pentagram containing the Hebrew letters at the 5 points of the pentagram spelling out Leviathan first appeared in the book La Clef de la Magie Noire by French occultist Stanislas de Gouta in 1897. This symbol was later used by Maurice Bessy's book, A Pictorial History of Magic and the Supernatural, with the words Samuel and Lilith removed. During his years of research into the black arts, LaVey, as in Anton LaVey, founder of Church of Satan, had come across the book and added it to his collection. When he chose to turn his magic circle, the Order of the Trapezoid, into the Church of Satan, he decided that the symbol was one which most fully embodied the principles which were the bedrock of the Satanic Church. Okay, this is I'm reading on here to link Pan to Baphomet, to show you that Baphomet is just another form of Pan. Pan is called many other things and known as many other gods. You know, you'll find Pan in different forms, sometimes with ram horns, sometimes with goat horns, sometimes with antlers. Always like half human, half animal. You know, different zodiac animals they use. So zodiac is all about astrology. You know, watching the rotation of the planets and mimicking them, worshiping them. So this is The Secret Teachings of All Ages, an encyclopedic outline on Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolic philosophy. Page 35, you get to the Great God Pan. And this is by Manly P. Hall, I'm not sure if I said it before, 33rd degree Freemason. And in his book, he's reading from Ketcher's Oedipus Egypticus. And now it says in there, the great god Pan was celebrated as the author and director of the sacred dances, which he is supposed to have instituted to symbolize the circumambulations of the heavenly bodies. Remember that, circumambulation of the heavenly bodies. For later on, I'm going to give you more evidence of that. Pan was a composite creature, the upper part, with the exception of his horns, being human, and the lower part in the form of a goat. Pan is the prototype of natural energy, and while undoubtedly a phallic deity, should not be confused with Priapus. Priapus is the son of Dionysus. Dionysus is the son of Zeus. Okay, remember that. The pipes of Pan signify the natural harmony of the spheres, and the god himself is a symbol of Saturn, because this planet is enthroned in Capricorn, whose emblem is a goat. It says Egyptians were initiated into the mysteries of Pan, who was regarded as a phase of Jupiter. You see that? Jupiter is the same as the Greek Zeus. Saturn is the same as the Greek Kronos. Jupiter is the son of Saturn. Zeus is the son of Kronos. It says the Demiurgus or Demiurgus. Pan represented the impregnating power of the sun and was the chief of a horde rustic deities and satyrs. I know I butchered that. He also signified the controlling spirit of the lower worlds. They fabricated a story to the effect that at the time of the birth of Christ, the oracles were silenced after giving utterance to one last cry: the great Pan is dead. And if you watch my other video, Pan is the god of Freemasonry. From this book, later on he says that Pan is not dead, that Freemasonry is the proof of his existence. Now back to page 35 of the Secret Teachings of All Ages, to link Pan and Baphomet together as the same deity, both being the worship of Saturn. So remember when it says circumambulations of the heavenly bodies? That's what they're doing here. They're circling around the cube of Saturn, their deity. Now, the ancient mysteries and modern Masonry. Islam being one of the ancient mystery religions. Rev. Charles H. Vail, 32nd degree Mason. This is also in his book. I just wanted to show different symbolism. Everyone thinks this is like some good symbol used by the Hindus, but really it's just an occult symbol. Hindu mysticism is just another mystery religion. Now if you go to page 200, you see at the bottom the rite of circumambulation or circumambulation. It says, this rite again connects Freemasonry with the ancient mysteries. It connects in a formal procession around the altar. The altar can be the black cube of Saturn, an idol, it can be fire, anything. And originally alluded to the apparent course of the sun, which is from east to west. In the ancient Greece, the priests during the rites of sacrifice walked 3 times around the altar while chanting a sacred hymn, which was divided into 3 parts, and each part was to be sung at a particular point in the procession. Now notice it says it alluded to the apparent course of the sun. Pan represented the impregnating power of the sun. I've read somewhere else that Pan gives off a natural type of an aurora lights or something. I don't know if you heard of the northern lights. They say Saturn gives off some type of natural light like that, and the ancients once thought that Saturn was a sun also. Now, from that clip that we just seen with the naked women dancing around the fire, you simply type in Bacchus dance, and right here we have the same video, but the uploader is calling it Bacchus or Bacchus woman, secret priestess of Bacchus, dark mystic wine ritual, essence, occult power, forest. You can see, scroll down and see how popular Bacchus is, and the dance associated with Bacchus. And remember what was said about Pan. He was associated with dancing. Top line, it says, celebrated as the author and director of the sacred dances, to which he is supposed to have instituted to symbolize the circumambulations of the heavenly bodies, just like they were circling the fire. It's just the same exact video, but with Pan taken out. They're not showing Pan. Now that you see the rites practiced in Islam of circumambulation and practiced in other pagan and witchcraft traditions, and you see that this is what is linked to Freemasonry, because Freemasonry, they say, is the practice of all the ancient mystery religions. See here, neo-paganism. In 1933, the Egyptologist Margaret Murray published the book The God of the Witches, in which she theorized that Pan was merely one form of a horned god who was worshipped across Europe by a witch cult. Baphomet's another. The theory influenced the neo-pagan notion of the horned god as an archetype, I hope I said that right, of male virility and sexuality. In Wicca, the archetype of the horned god is highly important, as represented by such deities as the Celtic Cernunnos, Hindu Pashputi, and the Greek Pan. In Wicca and other forms of neo-paganism, a horned god is revered. This divinity syncretizes a number of horned or antlered gods from various cultures, including Cernunnos. The horned god reflects the seasons of the year in an annual cycle of life, death, and rebirth. As in the winter, or the winter solstice, they believe the sun dies. That's the death. And then in the summer solstice, they believe it comes back to life. And in other stages in the cycle of life, like, right now, the autumnal equinox. And the other one in, in the spring? It's 4 different cycles. This is what these gods represent. Exactly like in Islam. Going around the Saturn cube. Baphomet is derived from Muhammad. It makes sense, doesn't it? Again, like the Pan, on page 35 of the Secret Teachings of All Ages, it says here, a hieroglyphical representation of Jupiter or Pan. And here they call him Jupiter. But down below, when you read, it says he's a phase of Jupiter, which is very interesting. They call him Jupiter or Pan, so that would make him the same as Zeus, right? And I want you to see here, masking the elements. G, his crotch area, the feminine elements. He's also hermaphrodite. Plant, seeds, and trees. Because plant, seeds, and trees are sometimes hermaphrodite. This is closely tied in, or they call it the worship of nature. And then if you look at K, his flutes, it says the harmonies of the 7 planets. See, it's all about the rotation of the planets, the cycle of the sun. The History of Freemasonry, Volume 6, by Albert Gallatin Mackey, third degree Freemason, and other authors. Then we go to page 1718. We have a bunch of different pagan gods. From the ones I noticed, I see here Abraxas, the god of Gnosticism. I see it says sun god and Dios Lunas, which means moon god. So moon goddess and sun god. And then we got Vishnu. Vishnu is a trinity from Hindu mysticism. Then we go to page 1720. Another version of Abraxas, the god of Gnosticism. We have Astaroth, one of the demons in Satan's dark kingdom, known as a principality or power. We got Dagon, the fish god. Then we got another version of Vishnu stepping on the snake. We got Baal, another power and principality of the dark kingdom of Satan. And then here we go, look, the goat of Mendes, aka the Baphomet, also known as a Pan, when in half human, half animal form. Okay, this is page 1721. Prepare yourself for this blasphemy. Do not be tricked by these occult books. They tell nothing but lies, mixed in with some truth. And they're always twisting it. So, let's start off by saying, they were all characters of human origin in the mythologic ages, designed as the saviors of men, each one empathetically the representative Christos or Christ of his particular nation, and the religious system designed to restore the lost and fallen race of man. If you continue to read, they're going to blaspheme Genesis and the serpent and Eve story about when God made the serpent slither on the ground and said he's going to put, I believe the word is enmity in between man and the snake. This is their blasphemous version. On the bottom, if you continue to read, which I do not feel like reading. So I'm going to skip. It's the same page, but I'm going to the fourth line from the bottom where it says, now, as Masons, we decide not between these, but take all in as our brethren. They take all pagan gods in as their brethren, and the one God as our Heavenly Father. Who do you think that is? Revealed to us as such in the great light of Masonry. They're talking about receiving that false light from Lucifer, their Heavenly Father. Now, if you watch any of my past videos, you would know that most of these pagan gods, if not all, represent Nimrod, Semiramis, and their son Tammuz. After Genesis 11:8, when God stopped them from building the Tower of Babel and spread them across the earth, this is how the religion got spread from Babylon. Semiramis, Nimrod, and Tammuz got spread around the world. So the people who were spread to different parts of the land, for example, if someone got spread to Egypt, they gave what they remembered of the religion and restarted it over there. They called Semiramis Isis. They called Osiris Nimrod. They called Horus Tammuz. Those are the same exact names in a different language. Now the people who were spread to India, They called Semiramis Vishnu. They called Tammuz Shiva. They called Nimrod Brahma. Do you get it? Like wherever you go, you're gonna find this Trinity. Back to the Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. Page 67, 78 on the PDF. It says, on the 19th day of March, 1314, Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templars, who were accused of worshiping the Baphomet, was burned on a pyre erected upon that point of the islet of the Seine at Paris, where afterwards was erected the statue of King Henry IV. See The Indian Religions by Hargrave Jennings. It is mentioned as a tradition in some of the accounts of the burning, writes Jennings, that Molay, ere he expired, summoned Clement the Pope, who had pronounced the bull of abolition against the order and had condemned the Grand Master to the flames, to appear within 40 days before the Supreme Eternal Judge, and Philip the King to the same awful tribunal within the space of a year. Both predictions were fulfilled. The close relationship between Freemasonry and the original Knights Templars has caused the story of Chatham, which is Harem of Biff, to be linked within martyrdom of Jacques de Molay. According to the interpretation of the three ruffians, or the Ruffins, who cruelly slew their master at the gates of the temple because he refused to reveal the secrets of his order, represent the Pope, the King, and the executioners. De Molay died maintaining his innocence and refusing to disclose the philosophical and magical arcana of the Templars. Now, if you watch my other video about black magic spirit spouses, the black magic spirit spouses, satanic ritual abuse, and the spirit world, part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you will understand why these type of people will not be able to tell you any secrets, because they're under mind control, which they call satanic ritual abuse mind control, which makes you split into different personalities. So he might not be able to tell you certain things in certain personalities. For further explanation, see my video. Now, Chatham, or Harem of Biff, also Harem of Biff with one F, or the widow's son, is the central character of an allegory presented to all candidates during the third degree in Freemasonry. For more information on Harem of Biff, see my video, Harem of Biff Exposed as Nimrod, 100% no doubt. And this is the other video I was talking about, Black Magic Spirit Spouses, Satanic Ritual Abuse, and the Spirit World. Link to part 2 is in the description. They deleted it, I had to redo it. Now you know who Harem of Biff is. On page 68 of the Secret Teachings of All Ages, 79 on the PDF I got. Sufficient similarity exists between Masonic Chatham and the Kundalini of Hindu mysticism to warrant the assumption that Chatham may be considered a symbol also of the spirit fire moving through the sixth ventricle of the spinal column. The exact science of the human regeneration is the lost key of Masonry, for when the spirit fire is lifted up through the 33 degrees or segments of the spinal columns and enters into the dome chamber of the human skull, it finally passes into the pituitary body, Isis, where it invokes Ra, the pineal gland, and demands the sacred name. Operative Masonry, in the fullest meaning of that term, signifies the process by which the eye of Horus is opened. Now let me stop real fast and say, just like I was telling you, what does the Baphomet represent? What does Pan represent? What does these other deities represent? All the same thing. A.E. Wallace Budge has noted that in some of that papyri illustrating the entrance of the souls of the dead into the judgment hall of Osiris. The deceased person has a pine cone attached to the crown of his head. The Greek mystics carried a symbolic staff, the upper end being in the form of a pine cone, which was called the Thyrus of Bacchus. Remember the video I showed you with the women circling around with Pan? That same video, they said it was Bacchus. They said it was the worship of Bacchus, but left all the Pan footage out. In the human brain, there is a tiny gland called the pineal body, which is the sacred eye of the ancients and corresponds to the third eye of the Cyclops. Little is known concerning the function of the pineal gland, or the pineal body, which Descartes suggested more wisely than he knew, might be the abode of the spirit of man. As its name signifies, the pineal gland is the sacred pine cone in man, the eye single, which cannot be opened until Charum, aka Harem of Biff, the spirit fire, is raised through the sacred seals, which are called the 7 churches in Asia. Now it's all about astral projection, lifting your spirit out of your body. And what do you think is going to happen when this happens? You're going to get possessed. So many people came out. How do you think I have this information? Satanists came out and told us about it. People in the cult came out and told us about this. Regular people don't read and study this. Speaking of the Baphomet, I gotta talk about Aleister Crowley. And this image we have here with Baphomet written in the background and a symbol next to it. I'm gonna play you a clip from David Carrico's video on secret societies and satanic ritual abuse.
Obituary in the November 1990 issue of the Scottish Rite Journal stated, and I quote, "Hall did not teach a new doctrine, but was an ambassador of an ageless tradition of wisdom that enriches us to this day. The secret teachings of all ages is also known by an alternative name. Its formal title is an encyclopedic outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolical philosophy. The obituary referred to this encyclopedic outline as being one of his 4 best-known books. Manly P. Hall wrote a 26-page foreword for a book published by the Mother Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite called Your Amazing Mystic Powers. This book was written by Henry C. Clausen, 33rd degree, the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite. The cover of the book shows the throne room of the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C., and in that room we can see the black stone altar and the elevated throne with golden snakes on each side where Clausen was seated during the rituals. I want to draw your attention to the emblem that Clausen wore on his head when he was seated on the throne of the Scottish Rite. The emblem on his Grand Commander's hat is called the Knights Templar Cross, or the Sigil of Baphomet. This emblem was also used by another famous 33rd degree Mason, Aleister Crowley. In the picture of Crowley in his full Masonic regalia, we see to the left of Crowley's face the Sigil of Baphomet with Crowley's signature. While he was laying the foundation for modern Satanism with his doctrines of blood sacrifice and ritual sex, Crowley was being awarded the highest degrees of Freemasonry the world over. Crowley was more than a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. He rose to the 97th degree.
They also call this the Cross of Salem. I don't know if it has to do anything with Salem witches or anything like that, but you'll find it under the name Cross of Salem. You know, Albert Pike wore it. You type in Sovereign Grand Commander, you get a bunch of pictures of different people, different races and everything wearing the same hat. Different lodges and everything. with the leaves around it, maybe olive branches or something significant to Bacchus. We're in the crown for Bacchus. As seen here, over and over again. But what does it really mean? It means Baphomet. What does it really represent? We can take a look at it in a different way. Turn it on the side. Then I can pull out some crayons or something, whatever you want to call it. And can we not get the seal of Saturn here? Is that not the same thing? Represented over and over again in different ways. All about astral projection, Kabbalah. Can you see it everywhere? Come on, it's everywhere you go. Now, this last piece I got from the Egyptian Masonic Satanic Connection by David Carrico. And other authors. Very good information. This is where I got most of my information from. This is where I learned a lot about all this from this book, and also the video version of that book called Satanic Ritual Abuse and Secret Societies from Consciousness of One channel. And also David Carrico and his wife had their own channel. Check them out. Page 17 of David's book says right here, the Masonic Lodge of Indiana makes no effort to hide its connection with the mystery religions. It openly boasts of its connection with the ancient mysteries, the Master Mason, a book authorized by the Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of Indiana and compiled by the Committee on Masonic Education, plainly shows the connection between Hiram Abiff and the mystery religions. The idea that lies behind the Hermeric, this under say Hermeric instead of Cherem, still Hiram Abiff. The idea that lies behind the Hermeric legend is as old as religious thinking among men. The same elements existed in the story of Osiris, which was celebrated by the Egyptians in their ancient temples. The old Persians told it concerning Mithras, their hero god. In Syria, the Dionysian mysteries had the very same elements in the stories of Dionysus. For the Romans, Bacchus. Bacchus was the god who died and lived again. Now let me stop real fast. Remember Bacchus and Dionysus from the woman circling the fire in the Pan video, and then someone remade it and called it Bacchus Dionysus worship. There is also the story of Tammuz, older than any of these. These are collectively referred to as the ancient mysteries. They were celebrated by secret societies much like ours, with allegorical ceremonies during which the initiates were advanced from one degree to another in these old societies. Read these old stories for yourself and marvel how men in all ages have taught the same great truths in the same effective way. Now what is it? Tammuz. They said all these people are the same with Tammuz. He said Osiris, Mithras, Dionysus, Bacchus. That means Pan, Baphomet. Who's Tammuz? Tammuz is the son of Nimrod. They believe Nimrod reincarnated in Tammuz. Now if you want to know what page, you can find this on in that book. It's called The Master Mason by the a book authorized by the Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of Indiana. Master Mason, page, let me see, it's found at 36. That can be found on page 9 and 10. Right here, 36, the Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of Indiana, compiled by the Committee on Masonic Education, the Master Mason, page 9 and 10, on the threshold. It's the publisher. Now, who is Tammuz? He's exposed in Ezekiel 8:14. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. There's a lot of good commentary on this, but I prefer Gill's. So I'm going to Gill's exposition on the entire Bible. And I'm going to read from there. It's going to be on the left side. We'll go down a little bit. And start from here. Maimonides, he must be some type of writer. He puts an A there, so he gives the source at the bottom. So it says, Maimonides writes that he found written in one of the books of the ancient idolaters that there was a man of the idolatrous prophets whose name was Tammuz, who called to a certain king and commanded him to worship the 7 stars and the 12 signs of the zodiac. And the 7 stars, I believe, is the Orion constellation, aka Nimrod, for which the king put him to a violent death, and the same night he died. All the images from the ends of the earth gathered together to the temple of Babylon, to a golden image which was the image of the sun, and this image was hanging between the heavens and the earth, and it fell into the midst of the temple, so all the images round about it, and it declared unto them what had happened to Tammuz the prophet, and all the images wept and lamented all night, and when it was morning they all fled to their temples to the ends of the earth. Is that Genesis 11:8? And this became an everlasting statute to them, that at the beginning of the first day of the month of Tammuz, which is the summer solstice, every year they lamentate and weeps for Tammuz, and there are others that expand Tammuz in the name of the beast which they worship. Let me scroll down a little more. There's a lot on it. He's also known as Adonis. Let me see right here. It says every year they beat themselves, lamentate, and offer sacrifice, and great mourning goes through the whole country. And when they beat themselves and mourn, they sacrifice to Adonis as dead. But the day following they pretend he is alive, and they shave their heads as the Egyptians do at the death of the Apis. Ever wonder why all these celebrities shave their head? I wonder if they do it around the summer solstice. And indeed, it is thought by some that this Tammuz is the Osiris of the Egyptians. The same with Mazaram, the first king of Egypt, who was being slain in battle. His wife has ordered that he should be worshipped as a god. A yearly lamentation made for him, and indeed Osiris and Adonis seem to be one and the same, only different nations called by different names. Mention is made in Plato of Themis. D is another one of his sources he gives at the bottom. Plato of Themis, a king that reigned at Thebes over all of Egypt, and was the god called Amun, no doubt the same with his Tammuz. I think that's about enough, right? Oh, let me show you the bottom. Where he gives all his sources. Fact checked everything. For some more information on Tammuz, I just did a video on this movie, Midsummer. It's called Movie Trailer Midsummer Exposed as Weeping for Tammuz. Midsummer is about the summer solstice to the sun god, which is Tammuz or Adonis or Osiris, just like in the movie Midsummer. Alright, this is Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma. He's a Scottish Rite Freemason. And yes, this is in there. Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light, and with its splendors intolerable blinds feeble, sensual, and selfish souls? Doubt it not. It's page 404 in the book. On this PDF, it was 269. He says, we celebrate the August mysteries of Ceres and Proserpine, says the Emperor Julian, at the autumnal equinox, to obtain of the gods that the soul may not experience the malignant action of power of darkness that is then about to have sway the rule in nature. Now, after they have the Hajj, which is the circumambulation around the black cube of Saturn, they have what they call the Feast of Sacrifice, very, very close around the time of the autumnal equinox, but they go off a lunar calendar. Now back to Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike, page 415, I believe. But if you get the PDF, it's the 11th Adonis written in Morals and Dogma. Now he's talking about Ezekiel 8, just like I showed you from Ezekiel 8:14. Ezekiel speaks of the festivals of Adonis under the name of those of Tammuz, an Assyrian deity, whom every year the woman mourned seated at the doors of their dwellings. These mysteries, like the others, were celebrated in the spring at the vernal equinox, when he was restored to life, at which time, when they were instituted, the sun, Adani, Lord, or Master, was the sign Taurus in the domicile of Venus. He was represented with horns in the hymn of the Orpheus. In his honor styles him the two-horned god, as in Argus, Bacchus was represented with the feet of a bull. Plutarch says that Adonis and Bacchus were regarded as one and the same deity, that this opinion was founded on the great similarity in very many respects between the mysteries of the two gods. That's it. Alright, after this I'm going to close it out. So, almost 526, but you have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chuan, your images, the star of your god, which you made to yourselves. Moloch and Chuan being the same thing, alright? Scroll down, go to anywhere. So it's right here, Chuan, rendered by the LXX. Rephan, or Remphan, according to Varsus. It signifies the moon, but Ibn Ezra understands it of Saturn, an interpreting which many learned men approve. Saturn was called Rephan or Remphan by the Egyptians. Your images, they had images of these supposed deities, that of Moloch representing the sun, and that of Chuan the star Saturn. So like I showed you in the beginning of the video, the star of Saturn, 6-point star, the cube, the hexagram, using simple geometry. Also in Acts 7:43, yes, you took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which you made to worship them, and I will carry you beyond Babylon. Just like we learned, it was Chuan and Amos. This is supposed by many scholars to be identified with the planet Saturn. Okay, that's all I got for right now. Saturn is also known as Kronos in Rome.